travelers. Welcome to Life Between Flights, the podcast about small business, the travel industry, and everything in between. I am your host, Cecily North Rudo, owner of Traveling North Travel Agency and a certified travel advisor. Today, I wanted to mention just real quick before we get into the episode. So I had clients travel a while ago now, maybe about 6 months ago. They did a Cosmos tour to Ireland and Scotland, and it was two sisters. One of them is a very good friend of mine. Both of them actually were at my wedding, and she lives on the East Coast, and, I'm over here in Colorado, and so we hadn't talked in a long time. I hadn't even heard about her trip to Ireland. All I got was a picture of them on the plane leaving New York, and then never heard anything else. So I assumed everything went well, and then we had been texting back and forth and trying to come up with times to meet and chat about stuff, and just things happened. And so finally I got to chat with her last night and hear all about her wonderful trip. It sounds like they had a wonderful time and Cosmos treated them very well, and they had such magical moments across Ireland and Scotland, and really got to experience what they wanted to. And of course now they want to go back and do more of an independent tour, although their guide they had apparently was amazing. And so she really wants to do another tour with him. So it was really great to get that feedback and know that they had a wonderful time. And then I got home and there was a package waiting for me, and she had sent me a beautiful, beautiful scarf that she had seen in Ireland and thought of me. And so it was just very serendipitous to come home to a package from her with this beautiful, beautiful scarf. So I'm wearing it today because it's snowy and cold, and it's just like the perfect little accessory. And yeah, so just had to share that because usually it's funny, like I ask for feedback from clients all the time about their trips, and sometimes I'll see pictures on social media when they're traveling, but very rarely do I get like a lot of feedback back from clients. So it was nice to, even though it's been several months, like she did share some photos with me and kind of the really special moments that they had over there. So yeah, it was just wonderful to hear all about it and that they had a wonderful time. So with that, today we're going to be talking about finding your niche. And that is something that is talked about all the time. And I'm going to kind of talk about my experience with finding my niche. And, as we talk to other travel advisors, that's definitely going to be a topic because there's so many out there. And the more research I do on just the travel industry and host agencies and what other agents specialize in, is there's just no limit to it. And so it's always very interesting to me to see kind of what people gravitate towards and, how they got to that. So know that there will be more interviews coming from fellow agents in the future, and we'll be talking about all of that. So going back to when I started my travel business, like I've mentioned a million times, I started with Disney and Universal. Disney, I had been I knew Disneyland very well growing up there, and then Disney World, I had been to at least 5 or 6 times, maybe even more at that point when I started my business. So I really thought that Disney was going to be really what I focused on. And that was kind of where I started with my training. And it was definitely the thing that I was promoting the most for my business in the very beginning. I also included Universal. I had been to Universal in Hollywood growing up. I'd been there a few times. And then I had been to Universal in Orlando. I don't think I'd even been to Universal in Orlando when I started my business. I think that came the next year that we went. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where in the very beginning, I think a lot of people, regardless of industry, like you're really just trying to get any clients, right? Like you're not going to be too discerning about working with anyone. In those first 2 years in my business, I was helping people. I had someone, just a random person, contact me, and they just wanted me to book them flights. And then if that went well, then they might book a cruise with me later. And so I booked the flights for them. And then, I shuttered my business for a year and a half. But I also don't think that they would have ever, just for flights, it wasn't like it was really needing a whole bunch of skill just for that. I also didn't charge a fee. So I made no money off of that. And I was like, well, it's goodwill. It's going to be, This might lead to a booking later. And of course it didn't. So, I was just really desperate to book anything and everything. And even up until very recently, like maybe in the past year, I have been very anti-niche. I've had discussions with agents and talking to suppliers and talking to, other people in other host agencies and just other people in the industry. And a lot of the times you'll hear people talking about my niche is, or when I meet other agents and, it's run the gambit from obviously the agents that just do Disney or just do Disney and Universal. There are agents that just do cruises. I know agents that just do luxury safaris. There's some that just do like Christian religious tours, some that specifically focus on like the South Pacific. There's ones that just do train trips and so many more things than just that. And, for the longest time, my business was really just taking in anything and everything. And regardless of what that meant for me, for my business, my sales, whether I was making commission or not, I was just trying to get people onto my client list. And so I would say that, I specialize in Disney and Universal, which is true because that's what I knew the most about. But that didn't necessarily relate to the bookings that I was making in the very beginning. And even now, it's just a very small part of my business is Disney and Universal, as much as I love it. And so I think, and also finding a host agency that let me do trainings and be introduced to suppliers that do all kinds of things all over the world, that offer so many different interesting and unique opportunities, that I think for me in the very beginning, I also was like, oh, I want to sell cruises. I want to sell Globus. I want to sell Disney. I want to sell Royal Caribbean. I want to do FunJet and Apple and all of those. I love everything about travel. So, I was never having to be tied to a specific supplier, which is also wonderful, having that freedom as well. And so I think it just took me a really, really long time to find my niche. And so with that, last year and the year before, Dugans had done a business boot camp 2 years ago. And I went to that. It was just like a 3-day, just quick little kind of business building boot camp. And one of the things we talked about was finding your niche. And we had talked about it many times before. It usually, at conferences, we always hear about it. Suppliers always talk about it. And there are obviously a lot of agents get into this and they already know the stuff that they're good at, the stuff that they know, whether that's cruising, whether that's all-inclusives, whether that's destination weddings. That was another thing that I thought when I started, because my second husband and I were married when I started my business, and we had gotten married in Hawaii. And so it was already it was my second wedding. It was a destination wedding. It was a very different experience than my first one. So I had a lot of opinions about destination weddings at that point. And so I thought that was another avenue that I would end up going down, because it was it was an experience that I had. And now over time, I'm realizing that I would love to book a destination wedding. Don't get me wrong. It's just I've never had the opportunity to do that. And there are agents out there that only do destination weddings and they do the honeymoon and all of that stuff. And so there's just such an opportunity for whatever you are interested in. And that's really where, when you're starting your business and you're thinking about how you want to market things, or do you want to specialize and find that niche, because that's where you're going to find more of your clients. If they know that you are an expert in a certain topic or a certain area, they're going to be the ones that want to book with you and want to work with you. And so I think about, there are some agents that I know that are those destination wedding specialists. They've done the trainings, they've done the certifications, they do these big, huge groups and these weddings. And it's such a great business for them that they don't need to do anything else. Their business is so big with just the weddings that they don't need to worry about any of these other things. And the nice thing too about having these niches and also being part of a host agency or having a network of agents to talk to is that if you only want to specialize in that niche, you just have that one thing that you care about and you have no interest in doing the other stuff, partner with another agent that will do those other things. I know an agent that just does Hawaii and the national parks, which is an amazing niche that is very, very specific. And so, partnering with them and saying, okay, well, if you get a request for something else and it's kind of out of your comfort zone, If you don't have anyone else, that you think of, please refer them to me. I'd be happy to help them. And it's really nice having those partnerships because some agents, they just don't want to do it all, and they don't, it's still their clients, and they're like, I don't want them to have a bad experience. I want to send them with a agent that I can trust and knows that they're going to give them the best experience possible. I've talked to several of my other agent friends within Dugans that, their business is booming, and they're like, I just don't have the time to help, everyone that contacts me. And if they know that my interest is in Disney, and they're like, I'm going to pass everyone on to you, that's another good thing about knowing where your interests are and where you want to spend your time, because you can partner with those other agents and be like, hey, I'm only going to focus on this one thing. If I get any requests outside of that, I'm going to send them your way, and vice versa. They can get requests that are for your specialty, and maybe they have no interest in that, and they'll pass it your way as well. So there's a lot of just benefits of having these specialties. So for me, when I was so anti-niche for many, many years because I was booking it all, even though I thought I was just really going to be focusing on Disney and Universal. That is now such a small part of my business. I would love to book more, but I've found that what I really love doing and what I really have the patience for, I guess, is FIT. So everything is, it's all of the components put into one big trip, into an itinerary. I have sometimes done packages like through FunJet or Apple or something like that. I've done a few cruises. I've done the one land tour with Cosmos. And it's not for lack of trying to promote, the land tours and the cruises and all of that stuff. It's just most of my clients want to be very independent, and they want to be doing things very much on their own terms and their own schedule. And so I've really come to, in the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, that my niche is highly customized itineraries. So they're not getting the cookie cutter, following with 100 other people and you're doing all of these things together. It is very much very, very customized to what their interests are and where they want to go and what they want to see. And so finally giving into that and realizing that that's my niche, my specialty is putting all of these components together, and realizing that not every agent wants to do it like that or has the interest in doing that has also been very enlightening to me. I was at a trade show with our local ASTA chapter in the fall, and there were, it's a whole bunch of vendor tables. It's very, very loud. There's, hundreds of agents wandering around. The suppliers are chatting with everybody. There's music. There's just a lot going on. And I was standing at a table waiting to talk to a supplier, and I noticed the supplier next to me was talking to someone, and they were both talking about how much they hate FIT, essentially, and saying, why would anyone waste the time to book everything individually when you can work with a company that just packages it all together, which is, a valid point. But for me, I'm like, well, I have done, I've worked with Avanti and Europe Express and GoAway and a couple others that build these custom itineraries for clients. But I've found that my clients get more customization when I'm able to, take out the things they don't like, add in the things they do like. A lot of places they require minimum nights, and they require you must have all of these components to make it a package. And I've also found that their pricing isn't any cheaper to package it versus booking all of the components individually. And so that's just been my personal experience with it. And so I've just found that that's really where I love putting all of those pieces together. And so I've now worked with I've worked with solo travelers doing their own, they might just need a rental car and a hotel, maybe an excursion, very, very minimal components. And then working up to a group of 35 flying from different places, all needing different hotel requirements, different transportation requirements, helping them with activities and tickets and all of that stuff. And then coordinating okay, you guys are all going to have one dinner at this place, and then you're all going to have one experience at this place. And then the rest of the time they had free time. So, and then in between that, I've worked with a group of 14, which was an amazing graduation trip. And again, people coming from different places, flying into one place. They went to 4 different locations across like 2 weeks. And like some people went to like 3 of the 4, some people went to all 4. And so it was a lot of different components, but that's something that you couldn't do with a package. They also had like a private villa, and then they had a VRBO in a different location. Like there were just a lot of pieces to it, and it's something that they wouldn't have been able to do as a package with just how their logistics of that specific trip. And I think that one was the one that was more of a turning point for me for realizing, oh, this is actually what I'm really good at, is putting all of these pieces together and coordinating the flights and the trains and the ferries and all of the things, making sure that everybody's getting to the right place and letting them then have their free time. So they get to decide how much time that they're spending in each place, instead of tour guide or the company telling them, okay, we got to go. And talking to my client last night, that was the one thing she was talking about, how she wants to go back because she wants to spend more time in each location, because when you're doing it as part of a package or part of a group, sometimes you're lucky and you get to a place early, but she's like, I would have loved to have spent another day there, and we only got to spend one night. And so that's why I've just found that a lot of the people that gravitate towards me want just those highly customized itineraries where it's all on their schedule. They get to decide how much time they're spending in each place, how they're getting there. I've helped with the train tickets and ferries and the channel and plane tickets and private transfers and all of the things that help them get somewhere, and then helping them find like a private chef to come in and make them dinner, finding like the excursions and the tours where, okay, some people are going to go do this morning, some people are going to go do this, and just giving them that freedom. And that's been the really, really fun thing for me is, if I get a request, like I keep joking that 2026 is the year of Hawaii. 2025 was the year of Ireland and Scotland for me. I had a lot of inquiries for Ireland and Scotland and helped a lot of people with those in all manner of, every single trip looked very, very different. But this year it is the year of Hawaii. And so I've been talking to a lot of my clients about what that looks like. And, some of them, they just want to be in a resort. They don't even want a rental car. They just want to transfer to the resort, and then they never want to leave, for 5 days or a week or whatever. And, they're like, well, we'll get a Lyft or an Uber into town if we need to, but we really just want to stay on property and not do anything else, which is fair. And then I've had clients that, they want to do multi-island. So, okay, well, we'll start here, and then we'll go here, and then we'll go here, and we'll schedule the puddle jumpers and all of that, and giving them the options for the hotels and all of that. And some of that, for that specific trip, I did do a package through FunJet, which I think worked out very well for them. I think the problem was just some of the hotels that were chosen, I don't think were quite up to what they thought it was going to be. But now I'm working on a trip to Hawaii for people that have never been there before. They kind of have an idea, and I told them, well, let me look at the components, and I will send that pricing to you and those options. You guys decide what you like, what you don't like. I'm happy to find more options for you. And I think once they kind of decide on what they're looking at, then I'll go and look back at the different suppliers. And it's like, maybe it is better to do a FunJet package where it includes the flights and the transfers and the hotel if they're not really wanting, and then the puddle jumper and then another hotel if that's what they decide to do. And so going the package route is rarely my first thought. And so for me, it's just more my style to just kind of price out all those components individually. But for others, finding your niche of, say, cruising, you can definitely, with cruises for sure, you just do your certifications with all of the cruise lines. There's so many out there that you can get certifications with. And the great thing about them and other suppliers too is once you complete their training, you are part of their directory. So if someone is at their website and is looking and says, hey, I like this itinerary, I like this cruise, it'll say like find a travel advisor near you, and it'll list everybody in your area that has completed their certification. And I know agents that have gotten leads that way. And so, for those kinds of things where, let's say you're coming into the industry and you love cruising, well, that's a great way to start, is just getting all of your certifications done. Again, promoting all of that on your socials and your website to say, hey, look at all of these certifications I've completed, sharing your own experiences with your trips cruising, or, excursions, or the places that you've stayed at while cruising. Talking about all of that is really going to help you stay within your niche if that's your interest. I will say, like, as someone that I truly thought that my niche was going to be Disney and Universal, and now 11 years later, realizing that, I would say maybe 5% of my business is Disney, Universal, the theme parks kind of thing, maybe even less than that. And even like, I thought, like, I love cruising, and the big joke for me when I would talk to my suppliers, my cruise lines, and I'd be like, I cannot sell a cruise to save my life. Like, I have tried many times. I love cruising. I would love to sell more cruises. It was just taking me forever to finally find a client that wanted to book a cruise. Like, a lot of people would be like, hey, we're thinking about doing XYZ. Like, hey, we want to do an Alaskan cruise. And then once I would send them pricing or whatever and be like, oh, that's outside of our budget, we're going to do something, more like local and low key and save money, or just the timing didn't work out, or, all the other components. So it was always just laughable to me that I was like, as much as I love cruising, I just can't find anybody that wants to book a cruise with me. That has now changed, and I'm hoping the cruising business part of my catalog will grow as well. But it is one of those things. That's why, like, even though I specialize in these highly customized itineraries, I still want to book the other stuff because I love the other stuff. I love booking Disney. I love booking Universal. I love booking cruises. I love helping clients with all of that stuff. But it's not just, I helped a client with a river cruise for later this year. And while we were kind of going over pricing and everything, and I was telling them, I was like, well, the cruise line provides this much, but if you want to do pre and post cruise, if you don't, if you want me to help price out flights compared to what they're offering, travel protection for sure, offering that outside of the cruise line, any additional excursions, like we can go through the itinerary and be like, hey, you have some free time, or these are the excursions they're offering. If you have zero interest in this, let me help you find something that you would like to do in the time that you're in port, helping with anything else that they might require while they're there. I've helped clients with anniversary dinners and just recommending, like, hey, just quick like weekend getaways where they're just getting away for the weekend for an anniversary type thing, and saying, okay, well, this is where, here's some recommended restaurants. Do you want help with the dining reservation? Things like that. That's really been my niche, is doing all of those little details. But I still love Disney. Disney to me is not just the resort and the park tickets, and a lot of us that book Disney, it's more than that. It's the flights, it's the transfers, it's the dining reservations. Now helping, especially clients that have never been to Disney or haven't been there in a really long time, and explaining like Genie Plus and Magic Bands and, all of the different apps and the Play Disney, and making sure that you can play this with your kids while you're waiting in line, and, helping with all of the different components to that. And, I've had clients go to Disney, but they want to do a day at Universal. It's like, great, I'll help you set up a transfer. So they'll pick you up first thing in the morning. They'll come pick you up when you're done for the day, like all of that kind of stuff. If that's where your clientele leads. The other point I wanted to make was that you might start your business thinking, hey, I'm just going to do cruises, and that's what I'm going to advertise. And then when you start going out and you're networking and you're meeting people might ask you like, hey, we have no interest in doing a cruise, but we would like to do a land tour that maybe goes to the same location. Maybe you're doing, maybe a transatlantic cruise or something like that. That's what you're offering and what you're advertising. And they're like, well, we don't want to do that, but we would like to do X. You can start out with one niche and one specialty and realize that the people in your area or the people that you're meeting, maybe that isn't what they want. And your niche can very much change and develop over time. That's certainly how mine has gone. And I know there are agents that, again, we start in the very beginning and we have no idea, it's just so overwhelming how much is out there and how many options we have to choose from and how many suppliers are out there. And especially when you're working with a host agency that allows you to work with so many different suppliers, you have so many options. And so it's kind of nice over time to look back and see what are you booking? What are your biggest bookings? Like, you want to be sure that you're tracking, if you have no idea what your specialties are, well, look back at your past year and see, well, I booked a lot of Disney. I didn't know that I was booking so much Disney. I thought I was booking more all-inclusives. Or maybe you're like, hey, I booked 3 cruises this year and I really liked it. And I didn't think that would be an interest of mine, but I really, really enjoyed booking these cruises. Maybe that's something that I should advertise more. One thing also, like, there are agents out there that, may focus on a very, very specific thing. Like my agent friend that just does national parks in Hawaii. Well, she's from Hawaii. So obviously she's going to have a whole lot more perspective on booking Hawaii. And then she also loves national parks, which is why she books the national parks. And that is such a specific thing. And I love it. And so that's something that, you can, if that's where you want your business to be and that's how you want to promote yourself and you have the opportunity to do that, that's amazing. Because those are the people, like, when you're marketing yourself and you're talking, and there's so many things where there's so much information out there about, traveling with the national parks, traveling to Hawaii, that you can just promote all of that stuff and work with the suppliers, work with the tourism boards, and they're going to provide all of your content. And it's more than enough to get people interested in what you do and your services. So in all of this rambling, what I'm trying to say is, your niche might be something that is already in your head, the things that you love to do, the things that you want to specialize in. But if you don't have that, you just love all of the aspects of travel and travel planning, it's fine for your niche to come to you later. For those of you that just don't even know where to start, or the thought of finding your niche is overwhelming, what I would do is start tracking what you're selling and what you're booking, even though obviously your certifications and things like that are going to help. But for me, just 2 years ago, I started keeping a list of everywhere that my clients have gone, including if they go on a cruise, including where all of the port stops. And so I keep a list of that every year, partially for my end of year recap, but also just to kind of see where my clients are booking. And then we use AgentMate as our CMS. And so you can run a lot of reports in AgentMate. And one of them is you can actually break it down by supplier, and you can see how much your sales were for each supplier or each, and you can kind of group those together and say, hey, out of my business for the past year, I can look and see, okay, 10% were all-inclusives and 15% was cruises, and the rest was all FIT hotels kinds of things. And you can kind of compare those and be like, well, everything I'm booking is Europe FIT, and then these cruises, or Mediterranean cruises or something like that. But whatever that is, those reporting and you keeping notes about where your clients are going can really help you decide what your niche should be. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't book outside of that. It just means that when you're out marketing and talking to people, it helps you craft your elevator speech. It helps you in your targeted marketing to clients. And of course, it helps with like your marketing, like if with travel leaders, when you're part of engagement and you're sending out the marketing, you can decide which suppliers you want to have sent to your clients. So if you have nothing to do with, if you don't sell cruises at all, you have no interest in cruises, obviously you're not going to want to send those marketing pieces to your clients. You can uncheck all of the cruise lines and you can just send out all of the other stuff. There's so many different ways to customize your marketing to what you're interested in. And so that's just finding your niche is what's going to help you decide, like, hey, these are the areas I'm going to focus on. These are the trainings I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to market, my services to my clients. And so there's just so many different ways to go about that. And as we talk more and we talk to more agents, you'll see how we've all kind of found our niches, whether it was something that was what got us going and it's still just, our bread and butter, or if it's something that's taken a little while to develop. I think there's just something about where our interests lie before we get into the travel business that helps us and helps us kind of get through those really early days of your business building and talking to clients and promoting what you're doing. And it really is just, once you start tracking what you're booking, it's just, I think it's fascinating to see, what you're booking anyway, and to look at those kinds of reports, but also you're going to start seeing patterns and things that might not be super apparent to you when you're just talking to a client. So with that, I hope that this sort of rambly discussion has been helpful about thinking about your niche, finding a niche, that it's okay if you don't have one right away, and that it will come to you over time. I would say definitely don't be anti-niche. If something is becoming very apparent to you early on that this is a specialty of yours, something that you're interested or something that your clients are interested in, I would absolutely recommend just accepting it and using that really as a marketing tool to help promote your business and help promote you, with other clients and the potential to really grow your business. And with that, safe travels, and may your luggage follow you wherever you go. Today's episode of Life Between Flights was sponsored by me, Traveling North, produced by me and edited by Nomad Creations. Please check out the show notes for referral links, discount codes, and more resources that I've talked about in this episode. You can also follow along on our social media on Facebook and Instagram at Life Between Flights Pod. If you want help planning your next adventure, you can always check me out at travelingnorthagency.com. If you have any questions, ideas, or would like to sponsor this podcast, you can email us at lifebetweenflightspod@gmail.com.